let's take a look at our top selections.
Hi everybody, Mike Beer here. Race number 9 down at Tampa Bay Downs on Saturday. A really nice running of the Grade 2 Hillsborough for older fillies and mares going 1 1/8 on the turf course. It goes as, again, race number 9 on Saturday. Let's take a look at this field right now. This is a very, very well-matched field here. 11 entered. Note that the number 9, Queen Nakia, is entered for main track only. So we'll have 10 entered for the turf course here, and this is a very well matched field. I think a lot of different horses who can win this race. Just some real quality in this edition of the Hillsborough. Let's start with the time form US pace projector just to get right into things here. We'll see how the pace all plays out. They have the 10 Morning Molly out there on or near the early lead. It feels like she is a horse who wants to be forward. Certainly the New York bred, the number 3, My Heart Belongs to Daddy, who got really, really good for trainer Jorge Abreu towards the end of last year. That's a horse who also has some speed. She didn't get near the lead in her final start of 2020, but prior to that, she was doing some real damage against New York breds while making her way to the early lead, and then giving those fields no chance to catch her. And some really improved performances. And she is a horse who started out her career like she could be okay for Chad Brown as well. So, interesting to see how the race sets up early, because it does feel like trips are going to be very, very important in this race. These are very well matched fillies and mares, and a lot of different horses can win. It might just come down to who gets the best trip. We'll start out by looking at number 1, Magic Attitude. This filly came over from France last year as a 3-year-old filly late in the year. She came over with a little bit of a reputation, lived up to that reputation almost immediately in the Grade 1 Belmont Oaks, going 1.25 miles. It felt like, in a lot of ways, it felt like she just found the right field that day. But she also, really ran well to win that race with a 93 Beyer speed figure. They rode her very confidently, took her back to last early, and just let her trail. Javier Castellano was always very confident with her, took her to the clear in the top of the stretch, and she had a strong finish to run that field over and win it going away. She came right back in another Grade 1 down at Keeneland. And I thought she ran well again. She got another good trip. They took her back. She rode the inside for a long way and got a nice run up the rail into the stretch to chase the very impressive winner home in there. Couldn't catch that horse, and then got outfinished for second by a horse who she's going to meet up again with in this spot. But all in all, I thought she ran well in that race. There's perhaps a little bit of a question as to whether or not she might really benefit from more distance rather than, this 9 furlong kind of a trip. But I don't think that's necessarily has to be her excuse if she winds up not winning here. She is off the layoff along those lines. Let's take a look at a formulator fact for her trainer, Arnaud Delacour, who just, he has really good numbers with horses like this over the past 4 years. 4-year-olds and up in turf routes off of layoffs like this, 120 to 180 days. 6 for 12, big ROI, $6.69. It seems, that suggests that he gets these horses ready to go off of layoffs. And if Magic Attitude is ready to go off the layoff, she's a major player in this race. A horse you have to take very seriously in here. The number 2, Counterparty Risk for trainer Chad Brown, very lightly raced, only 4 starts so far. But she's actually, run pretty well in all of them. I thought her career debut, where they went a little bit shorter with her, was a useful kind of effort. She kind of looked like a horse who might have needed a race that day, and it seemed like she might have gotten a lot out of it. She came right back to Breaker Maiden with a little bit more distance, and she had a really strong finish to win that race. She came back and just missed, got a little bit unlucky when they took her to Santa Anita at the end of last year to run in a stakes race, improved again, but just got into a little bit of traffic and then got clear just a tad too late, came rolling late and just missed getting to the front running winner in there. She came back for her 4-year-old debut in the Endeavor last time, a local prep for this race. Got a absolutely perfect trip in here. We're going to take a look at the replay right now. Johnny Velasquez just put her on the rail. She stayed down on the inside. The rail opened right up for her. At the top of the stretch, she came on through and she outkicked New York Girl to the finish. New York Girl is also back in this race. Just felt like Counterparty Risk. She was way the horse to beat there in the Endeavor. The trip certainly didn't hurt, but she was probably going to win anyway. She's going to have to improve, I feel like, to beat this field, but that's not out of the question. She looks like a filly with some real talent, and she's in the right hands, obviously. We touched on My Heart Belongs to Daddy a little bit in the open. Started out, she's a New York bred, started out her career like she was going to be okay, got very unlucky in a couple of races early on, didn't win those races, endured a very long layoff, but you know what? She came back at the end of November, at the end of November in 2019, with a really nice win for Chad Brown before he turned her over to Jorge Abreu, and she came back last year with 3 straight wins off the layoff, all of them against New York breds and all in races where they just put her right on the lead. And yes, they were slow paces. She took advantage in some respects to win those races, but she was also, at the end of the day, just better than those horses. They stepped her up in class for her final start last year in November at Aqueduct. And she ran fine. Didn't get anywhere near the lead that day, but she was comfortable rating off of it. Came with an outside run around the turn, and she was right there in contention all the way through the stretch. Couldn't quite get up, out-finished at the end. All in all, she ran fine. She's a tactical, handy kind of horse, and as a matter of fact, she's a little bit underrated. This is not an easy spot for her, however. The number 4, La Signare. She actually got pretty good last year for trainer Brenda Walsh. And the real interesting thing about her was early on in her career, when she really did look like she had some real potential, she was a speed horse. Brendan Walsh took over her training, and he really found a way to get this mare to relax. And she really benefited from the new tactics, it feels like. Just ran really, really well and competitively in one race after another, facing stakes company throughout the campaign last year. I just felt like she kept running, one good race after another. Maybe the Distaff Turf Mile, where they cut her back to a mile last September. Didn't necessarily have a huge excuse that day, but she ran fine. Got a little bit of a layoff after she failed to really make a serious impact in the Flower Bowl going longer at the end of the year. She's back. She's fresh. Brendan Walsh has some okay numbers, bringing turf horses back in routes off of layoffs. And she's just the kind of filly who feels like she could make some noise in this race. I didn't love her necessarily as a horse to take on top, to bet on top, but I think she can get a piece of this race. The number 5 is Court Return. Probably going to be one of the longer prices in this race. It took her a while to break her maiden, but when she finally did, and which she did, and by a big margin off the layoff last summer up at Woodbine, she came right back and won a stakes race from well off the pace. And then 2 starts later, just fell short in the Grade 1 E.P. Taylor, going a mile and a quarter. Didn't love the E.P. Taylor field last year. I'm not trying to knock this filly. She ran fine in that race. I just feel like this is a much tougher field. She is 3rd off the layoff in here. They tried to go longer with her last time to no avail. She got tired in that race. Her first 2 starts this year off the layoff, both times against a sharp horse and Always Shopping. How ironic. Looks like one of the longer prices in here, number 6. Her most recent turf start last October is actually probably the best race she's ever run. It was the Grade 3 Valley View. She got outrun to the back of that field, just saved ground, but all in all, it was a closers kind of race. She got a really good trip and ride from Bejarano, just following the winner into the race, and just couldn't get there. She was gamely second best. She's going to have to take another big step forward to compete with these horses. New York Girl, we talked about a little bit before, only second best to Counterparty Risk last time. She's another horse who's still relatively lightly raced. I suppose if you wanted to watch the Endeavor back and say, well, this filly was closer to the pace, she got pushed out wide by the pace setter at the top of the stretch, which allowed Counterparty Risk to get the inside run, and it made the difference. I suppose that could be true. I just feel like Counterparty Risk is probably the better horse at this point, but this filly's still lightly raced and could improve in this race. Number 8, Miss Tehran, another runner for Chad Brown in this field. I think this is a pretty dangerous horse in this race. Got very unlucky in her stateside debut off of a long layoff at Monmouth last September. Just got in tight, had to alter course, and then just came too late and got very unlucky not to win. You go back and watch her Forever Together, where she finished behind My Heart Belongs to Daddy. Didn't break sharply off the pace, in a little bit of traffic through the stretch, and it forced her rider to have to duck to the inside in there. I don't think that was necessarily ideal for her. She didn't run poorly at all that day. I think you could go back and watch the Grade 3 Frankel when they took her to Santa Anita 2-back and say that she might have actually run the best race that day, even though she didn't win. Again, strongly rated to the back of the field, and just, I don't want to blame Rosario for it because he had an open rail up the backstretch, but he just went from the back of the pack all the way up to the lead, up the backstretch run. He just asked this filly to carry her run for a very long way, and she actually did it. She only got tired very late in that race to get out finished. But in some ways, it's not that hard. to suggest that she might have been best in the Frankel two-back. And then they cut her back in distance and back in competition last time to an allowance race. And we'll watch the replay now because it kind of speaks for itself. Took her back off the pace. They rated her behind horses. Had a little bit of trouble where it looked like she might not get clear, but you can see once she does get clear in the stretch, she absolutely explodes and runs this field right over. This is a very impressive win for this mare. They're going to step her right back up in class. It's not a typical Chad Brown move to come back in, whatever this is, about 3 weeks. He usually likes to give him more time than this, but I'm not surprised he's wheeling this mare back off of that win. She was really impressive. Morning Molly, projected to be part of the pace in here. Has been, right there in, each of her last 6 starts, either first or second. She's stepping way up in class for this, and we'll see if she can get the trip that she needs to find the necessary improvement. Number 11, just a really underrated now 4-year-old filly, Michelin, who's going to make her 2021 debut here. Ran several really good races, sort of at or near the top of the 3-year-old filly turf division last year. Came away with a couple of stakes races, came up short and maybe in some of the biggest races that she ran in, but that doesn't mean she ran poorly in any of those races. And in particular, that includes the QE2, the last time we saw her at Keeneland. We'll take a look at the replay of that race right now because Magic Attitude's also in here. Magic Attitude came up the rail at the top of the stretch and sort of slipped past Michelin, who had to come around to the outside. But you can see down to the end in here, Michelin's really finishing well in this race. She is a filly who it feels like distance is good for her. It feels like she gets better as the distances get longer. And that was certainly the case last time in the QE2 Cup, getting out to 9 furlongs. She ran really well in there, comes up short to a really nice filly at the end. A nice performance from Michelin. And listen, she's just an underrated horse who tends to show up every time. She does need a trip. She's got an outside post and she doesn't have a lot of early speed. But if she gets the right trip in here, she fits right in with these horses. And as we put the picks up there for this race, that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Michelin on top just because I feel like she's going to be an okay price in here. And I think she's as good as anybody else in this race. I'm afraid of Miss Tehran. I put her in there as well, just because I feel like her race 2 back is probably good enough to contend here. And she was, very visually impressive, exploding in the stretch last time. So I put Michelin over Miss Tehran, but there are a lot of different ways to go here. A lot of different horses can win on this, very, very strong running of the Grade 2 Hillsborough. It's race number 9 at Tampa on Saturday. Good luck.